Welcome back, guys. Grant Broggi from the Strength Co. Today, we're going to talk about what you can learn from one of the best squatters there is and impact your training today. If you like the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Who are we talking about? Russel Orhii. Russel Orhii, known as the 89 kilogram king, is one of the strongest guys competing or lifting or doing anything right now. He recently squatted 755 pounds at a body weight of just under 200. Now, it was in training in his gym in Houston, Texas, Corrupted Strength, using the Strength Co iron, but there's a lot of things we can learn from that squat that you can implement today and make your squat even better. 3 things I want to cover. First, his warm-up. His load selection during warm-up, his hand placement during warm-up, everything that has to do with how this guy warmed up for 755 pounds. Second, bar placement. Why he chose the low bar position and why that allows him to squat more weight. And third, hip drive. How he uses it and how it allows him to squat more. Let's start with the warm-up. So if you don't know much about Russel, he's a pretty cool dude, owns a gym, very successful power lifter, also has an apparel line called Get Better Today, and just kind of produces a lot of positive content, showing you what he eats, what he does day to day, what it's like to run a business. And here's one of his vlogs getting into his training. So he's at his gym, and the very first thing I want you to notice with warm-up is that he started with the empty bar. A lot of people would think, hey, this guy can squat 755 pounds. He must warm up with, I don't know, 300 pounds, 400 pounds, 500 pounds. And while he does hit those weights along the way, he starts with an empty bar, same as you or I would do. Even if I'm warming up for a squat of 500 pounds, or my mother's warming up for a squat of 150 pounds, I'm not gonna walk into the gym and load all this weight on the bar and just begin squatting. No, I'm gonna warm up, and regardless if I'm an elite power lifter, a recreational lifter at home, or your grandmother, I'm gonna start with a light load to warm up the range of motion. So Russel starts with a bar, then he goes to a 45 on each side, which is 135 pounds, and he just makes incremental jumps on his way to 755. Now, the second thing I want you to notice about his warm-up is the grip. When you watch him do his first set here with his hands, you'll notice that as he goes down and up, he allows his hands and his wrists to move. His wrists go back into more extension and his hands are moving. But very quickly as he proceeds with his warm-up, you'll notice that that stops happening. What's happening is that he's actually getting warmed up. His shoulders, his delts, his pecs, everything's tight when he takes that first rep out with the bar. So he allows his hands to move so that he can keep upper back position and keep the bar where he wants it, which we'll get into in a second. But as he gets warmed up, each warm-up set happens, he's able to grip the bar tightly and keep it in position. In starting strength, we talk a lot about wrist position in the squat. We teach with the thumb over the bar so that the wrist remains neutral. One of the reasons we're doing this is so that in your mind, you're supporting the load with your back rather than thinking about holding the bar up onto your back with your hands. If you do that with significant loads, you'll end up with elbow tendonitis, tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, a bunch of inflammation happening there that can be very uncomfortable and make it hard to lift. However, that does not mean that a thumb around grip is incorrect or even wrong, or that there's not a place for it. As we look at Russel, we'll notice that he intentionally puts his thumb around the bar. He's sacrificing some wrist extension so that the bar can be in the correct position on the back because, well, he's kind of a big jack dude and that's just what he has to do with his hands. And as the load gets heavy, you'll notice that he adds some wrist straps to support the load so that he can do that with 755 pounds and not hurt something. So here he is with 495. You'll notice that his wrists are now supported with straps. Here he is with 585. And now let's start to talk about bar placement. Now, as he walks out here with 585 pounds, I want you to notice his bar position. His bar position is low on the back. Most people picture in their mind the bar being high up on the traps. If I put the bar high up on the traps, then in order to stay in balance, I have to keep this upright back angle. So here's a depiction of an upright back angle. With the bar high in the traps, I have to keep my torso up in order to not fall over. However, Russel's doing what we teach and what we call the low bar back squat. And in the low bar back squat, in order to stay in balance over middle of the foot, I have to lean over and shove my hips back more. What does that do? Well, a couple things. One, it gets more posterior chain involved in the movement than as we see over here. And two, it puts less stress on the knee because a lot of the load is now being used by the hips, right? The hips are supporting the load. So a low bar position requires that I lean over more and thus am able to use more weight when I'm squatting. So Russell is intentionally doing a low bar squat so that he can lift more weights. So we'll watch him now here with 585. You'll notice that he goes to full depth each time. Russell never messes around with that. Here he is with 675 pounds. And his hips are what are coming out of the hole. So as soon as this load got really, really heavy, you could start to see the exaggeration of his hips. Again, here he is with 585. And the first thing that comes up is his butt. What is happening? Well, he's leaned over to stay in balance. And when he hits the bottom of the squat, he's shoving the knees out, getting a stretch reflex, and his hips are leading up out of the hole. How is he doing that? He's thinking in his mind of pushing the floor away, staying leaned over, and driving the butt up because there's more muscle mass back here in the posterior chain than there is in the chest. This is why a lot of people look down or straight ahead when they squat. There's nothing necessarily wrong with looking straight up at the ceiling. It's just going to make it much harder to use your hips. If you look down a few feet in front of you, then you can stay focused there and drive your hips up out of the hole and thus lift more weight. And here he is with 675 pounds. Hips are the first thing that come up. And he racks it. And then the last thing I gotta critique our boy Russ on is, well, he forgot to film his 755. He did catch it on his phone, but didn't get it on his camera, so he shows you in the video a video of him showing you that he has the video on his phone, so make sure to turn your camera on. But what can you take away today? One, when you warm up, start with an empty bar and make incremental jumps on the way up to your work set or your top single or whatever it is you're doing. Two, bar on the low part of your back. It allows you to use more of you and thus lift more weights. And three, use your hips out of the hole, and before you know it, you'll be squatting 755 just like the 89 kilogram king. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe. See you next time.